Hi, I'm Deacon Jim Conrey, and this is my vocation story. So, I was born in the year 1965, so I'm really old at this point. And I actually grew up in a house that was about 20 yards from a Catholic church in a small town in Iowa where I grew up. But I never went to that church because I was an atheist, and I didn't believe in God until I was about 30 years old. And I didn't become Catholic until the year 2000. That's when I received the sacraments of baptism, confirmation, and Eucharist. And at that point in my life, the idea of being a deacon was nowhere on my radar screen. In fact, I'm not even sure if I really could tell you much about what a deacon did back then. But as time wore on, about the year 2010, after being Catholic for about 10 years, and having done several of the things that were similar to things that deacons did. So, for example, I was a lector, I was a catechist, I was taking communion to the homebound. And so I started to get in my mind, I think the Holy Spirit was saying to me, you should consider becoming a deacon. So I did the first thing I could think of, which was find a deacon. And so I talked to Lou Farinella, Deacon Lou Farinella, and asked him for some time. And I peppered him with questions about the diaconate. And that led me down the path to where I am today. Now, a lot of people, when they think about deacons, they primarily know about deacons in the context of Mass. And so that's the primary way that people know about deacons. The word deacon actually comes from a Greek word, diakonia, which basically means service. And so deacons are called to serve, but we serve in different ways, right? So on the altar is the obvious way, it's the most visible way, but also deacons serve away from the altar in a variety of capacities. And so in my case, since I've now retired from the working world, I have been spending time in the nursing homes, bringing communion to those folks, also to rehabilitation centers and other residential facilities. Um, Also, I do a fair amount of teaching here at St. Mary, primarily with adults who are thinking about becoming Catholic, but also in other ways. There are numerous things that deacons do away from the altar that a lot of people just are not aware of a lot of times. So it could range from working with the poor, working in soup kitchens. They can even be administrators. There are some deacons who are actually parish administrators. Um, there are deacons who teach in the high school and university settings. There's any number of ways in which deacons can serve away from the altar. But the main thing is that a deacon is called to serve. A deacon is called to be a herald of Christ in whatever way that he can, always remembering that Christ comes first and then the deacon comes second. So I would think one thing I would like to encourage men to think about is that obviously a lot of guys when they're growing up are asked to discern whether maybe the priesthood is for them, and they should. We need priests. But I would also encourage young men to consider the diaconate. The diaconate is something that is also a calling. It's also a special calling. And men can be ordained as deacons as young as age 35. Now, the majority of deacons tend to be ordained in their 40s and 50s, but you can be ordained much earlier. I know of a couple of deacons who are ordained in their 30s. So, for those men that maybe are watching this that are thinking about how can I serve the church, how can I serve the Lord, but the priesthood is not for them, I would strongly ask you to consider the diaconate. It's a very rewarding time. It's a very rewarding ministry. It's also a great opportunity to grow closer to the Lord and also to draw closer to His people in a parish.